Hello and welcome on in episode number 49 of the Wise Guys podcast. I am John Tortorelli and this is Brandon Capizzello. Today we'll be discussing the NFL in Germany, reacting to the Seahawks' painful loss versus the Buccaneers, then shifting gears to the game of the year in Orchard Park. Then we're going to talk a little bit NBA. The Brooklyn Nets have been 4-1 this year without Kyrie Irving. Maybe a little bit Memphis Grizzlies, how good they've been. And last but not least, VCap's going to have a word or two on UFC 281. So VCap, I think one of the greatest strengths of somebody is accepting their loss. And you and I, last weekend, made a bet that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would fall to the Seattle Seahawks. I had the Seahawks winning convincingly, and you had the Buccaneers winning on a game-winning drive, marching down the field and just add another one of those fourth-quarter comebacks to Tom Brady's tally. And they didn't win by a game-winning drive. They were actually up the entire game, and the Seattle Seahawks fell in what was an abysmal first half. The final score, 21-16. I have a lot of takeaways with this game, but I'll start off with you. In the meanwhile, I guess I'll Venmo you $25, or maybe
Yeah,
you're a
you will.
PayPal guy.
Yeah, you will. Um, First off, John, I would like an apology. Um, you were wrong, and I like how you started off by saying a great attribute in a person is admitting their losses, and not one time in that little diatribe you had did you admit that you were wrong or that you lost. I was right. Was I right about the game-winning drive? No, but they won, and they won convincingly. I know it was a 5-point game, but they were in control basically the entire game. The entire game. The defense played phenomenal. Dare I say, the past couple of years, phenomenal. Um, except for the last two drives, obviously, where they let up the two touchdowns and it got closer. But other than that, Devin White was playing great. Levante David was playing great. Jamel Dean did a pretty good job on DK Metcalf the whole night. Winfield was a big bonus back in. Akeem Hicks, he made a couple good plays. He made a couple boneheaded decisions. Actually, honestly, the one to the helmet where he just two-hand touched Geno Smith, I tweeted, I was like, a two-hand touch is unnecessary roughness now. He did, but that's neither here nor there. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked so much better this morning in Germany. I was cheering my ass off. I was going crazy, and I loved every second of it, except for the Leonard Fournette throw to Tom Brady, because that was just them getting way too cute. I loved the
Lenny,
effort.
no! Don't throw it!
He threw it. He
No!
didn't, and the worst part is he didn't even really look. If you watch the replay, he didn't even look when he threw it. He was just like, I'm just chucking it up. And it's like, if you were just take a second to look, you would have saw Tariq Woolen standing right in front of Tom Brady. But he's not a quarterback. So I loved the energy they played with. It was high. The effort was high. And Tom Brady and even Todd Bowles backed up those comments that the effort was lacking when they were playing. The running game finally showed. Rashad White was a godsend to this morning. He was the explosive back to Leonard Fournette's power back style. I compared it to a Zeke, Tony Pollard type 1-2 punch. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers not going nowhere, and um, I gotta be honest. I see them. They're going into their bye week now, 5-5, coming off a 2-game winning streak. I think they're gonna beat Cleveland coming off the bye. I think they're gonna beat the Saints coming off after that game. And I think they're gonna go to San Francisco and I think they're gonna beat the 49ers.
So let's dive into this game.
Let's
First
dive in.
off, the Seahawks' biggest attribute is their ability to run the football. And the Buccaneers, right out the gate, took that entirely off the menu. And when you can make that Seattle offense entirely one dimensional, forcing them to, hey, you're going to run the football and you're just going to run into a brick wall, it's not going to lead the third down conversions, number one. Number two, it's not going to get you in field goal, or especially not the red zone. And so for that Seattle offense, I felt like they were way too conservative in terms of going for it on a 4th and 6. They had opportunities in this game to be bold and really take it to a Tampa Bay defense that was playing with their hair on fire. And then defensively, Tom Brady had his way with that Seattle secondary. In the last 4 weeks, last month almost for Seattle, it was a complete 180 from their start to the season where everybody is flying around. They're getting pressure with Uchenna Nwasu. They're getting very good stops in the running game. And really all of that progress went backwards in this Tampa Bay matchup. But the biggest thing for me, B-Cap, was Julio Jones coming back. And Julio didn't have an insane day, but he had some explosiveness, some burst. And as number 3 receiver in this offense, another weapon that you can't lose sight of. Early in the first quarter, the first score of the game was Tom Brady finding him against a zone coverage look where the guy guarding him, Kobe Bryant, drops back into zone. And on a shallow crossing route, Julio Jones has nothing but absolute grass to run into the end zone for a 31-yard score. That right there set the tone for this game because the issue in Tampa Bay, and I'm going to talk about it ad nauseum, they won this game and they were the better football team today. But Tampa's still got so many issues. They get to go into a bye week. They get a little bit more rest for these older players. But at the end of the day, this is not a consistent football team. We've seen them run the football very well today, but can they sustain that later on in the season? I'm not quite sure. And then with Julio Jones, he adds an element to this offense, but we all know you can't rely on him to stay healthy. Chris Godwin as well today had an awesome game, one of his best games of the season, 71 yards and a score. He looked better too, a little bit more pop, a little bit more reliable on third down. And whether it was crossers or simple like 3-yard out routes, Tom Brady was just so comfortable in the pocket. And this Seattle rush defense just couldn't get anything going. So this was a terrible day for the Seahawks. But you saw the fight still in the fourth quarter when when Geno Smith was able to make great throws. Marquise Goodwin, he had a huge second touchdown catch. And I feel like for the Seattle offense, they have so many weapons, whether it's Tyler Lockett in the end zone and DK Metcalf was able to get this team some momentum in the second half. I think the Seahawks are going to be just fine. This is a young team, and I said just a week ago, they can go to the NFC Championship game, and I'm not quite out on that statement because they're young. These are the type of growing pains any good football team is going to need to have. And if this was your biggest dud of the season, or your second biggest outside their game against San Francisco week 3, I think you're going to be just fine. And this experience for them, I think, was a good one to build off of.
No. No, they're not going to the NFC Championship game. I mean, if they see Tampa Bay again in the playoffs, uh, again, I'm favoring a Tom Brady led team to win that game. I don't know what else, what else he needs to do to prove to you, that they can get it figured out, get hot, roll into the playoffs on a winning streak, roll into the playoffs firing on all cylinders. And I don't know why you call this team talent deprived. That's not their issue. They have the talent. It's actually a very talented team. It's the issue was the lack of effort and the miscommunications going on, the details. So once those get figured out and you clean those up, you're off to the races. So again, I don't know why you can't see that, but it's okay because we all know, the whole world knows that Pittsburgh Steelers fans, for some odd reason, just don't like Tom Brady. I mean, maybe it has something to do with, we beat up on you guys for better part of 2 decades. But yeah, it's all right, John. I understand. I understand. You're Pittsburgh Steelers. I understand why. It's
I
okay.
don't know why you're throwing a pod shot at me. The Steelers
I'm
won
not.
today, and you had them losing against Andy
No.
Dalton at home, which I thought was ludicrous. And today
No,
they
no.
surely showed with T.J. Watt in the mix. No Minka, no Boswell. They're still a very good football team with
No,
the
they're
reigning
not.
Defensive Player of the Year. What are you
No, they're not a
talking
very
about?
good football
The
team.
Steelers looked really good today. It was the first time I've seen them play complimentary football since last year.
Congratulations. You played an Andy Dalton led team with Dennis Allen as the head coach. Great job.
That's very true. But Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett showed signs, made a huge throw down the field to Deontay, set us up to
Okay.
win that game. And
But we're
hey,
not talking about
Najee
that.
Harris today, 99 rushing yards, best game of the season, getting things rolling. What do you think?
I simply brought up the Steelers because of why, to explain to the viewers and everybody why Pittsburgh Steelers fans hate Tom Brady. It is because that he beat up on you guys for the better part of 2 decades. And it's okay. It's okay. You know, John, it's not your fault. It's not.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Best Amp. When it comes to sports betting, guys, all of us want to make the most money, want to get the best bang for our buck. And with the Best Amp app, what they'll provide you with is the best odds across the sports betting market. All you have to do is download their completely free app and sign up for any of the variety of sports books out there so that you can give yourself an edge in the game. Be sure to bet like a pro with the Best Amp app. Not only is it free, but it provides so many other perks. Custom betting trackers. If you want to sell any picks, and there's no commission, royalty free. You get the entire cut. Thank you to Best Amp for supporting our show. And as always, let's get back to it, Sari. I thought with this game, Tampa Bay was a great matchup for Seattle because they finished this game 39 rushing yards for the Seahawks is uncharacteristic, especially against a Pete Carroll-led team where you're just punching it down their throat with a running game on the ground, because it's supposed to be vice versa with Seattle. They're going to take care of the football, they're going to manage the game and just ice the clock. And for it to be a total 180 today, I'm a lot more, I guess, impressed with the Buccaneers after a very slow start to the year. And coming off back-to-back wins, I think this team's in better position to actually win the division, which was something I didn't really expect them to not do, given the Saints being as bad as they are this year. But with all of that out of the way, we have to talk about Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. Brandon, today was a game many of us expected the Buffalo Bills to probably win. You know, even though Josh Allen was dealing with his UCL injury, the Bills have built one of the very best teams in football on both sides of the ball. They have a great head coach. And for Kirk Cousins playing in a hostile environment against a defense that's this good, even when some guys may be out, we saw the Vikings make one of the best comebacks in recent seasons. So I'm going to kick things off to you. They are now 8-1. This for them was yet another one-score win. Are the Vikings finally showing us, hey, look, Philadelphia was a bad game. We saw that it was not pretty, but can they actually beat the best teams in the NFL? And come postseason, can they be counted out now?
I'm not counting on them. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Both these teams have flaws to me. I've said this before. Um, for the Bills, it's really their struggles to win close games. And it's not a coincidence that two insane moments and games that people remember about Josh Allen is the Kansas City Chiefs game last year in the playoffs, and then now this game. Both games he lost. He lost both of them. And with the Vikings, I still don't believe in Kirk Cousins. What did he turn the ball over twice, right? Um, not a believer in Kirk, so no, I mean, a big win. You know, kudos to the Minnesota Vikings. Kudos to Kirk Cousins for getting the job done. Justin Jefferson was incredible today. Made an insane catch. Dalvin Cook had a big touchdown run. He was big time today. Hawkinson has provided a very big spark for them. But I'm sorry. When push comes to shove in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, I don't believe in Kirk Cousins. And I think he showed you the real Kirk Cousins today, too, with those turnovers.
What do you think about Patrick Peterson? Talking about interceptions, he gets 2, game ceiling. The secondary is the biggest question with this Minnesota team. I didn't feel like it was Kirk Cousins. And now you see them today on the road make crucial plays. And like you said, when it matters the most. Sure, they did let Josh Allen drive down the field and send the game to overtime. But that Minnesota defense, even if Josh Allen wasn't 100%, played a huge game today. And when you look at what the Bills' offense is capable of, what they've done all year long at home, to come out of Buffalo with a win, don't you think this is a season-defining game that can give them all the confidence to beat anybody? And kind of takes that Philadelphia loss and puts it so far in the distance, they're not going to think about it moving forward.
Sure, for them personally, yes, they can feel that way. For me personally, I do not feel that way because I understand later on in the season there's going to be even bigger games than this game because this was just a 1 o'clock game. And not to diminish it, but there's going to be primetime games coming up. And then you're going to be playing in the playoffs and the biggest moments, biggest games, the biggest stages. I'm sorry, I just don't have my money on Kirk Cousins in those stages. It's the same reason why I have so much faith and belief in Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, there was a chart I saw of if the playoffs started today, the NFC quarterbacks playoff records compared to it's laughable. It's freaking laughable to see Tom Brady's record next to these guys. I think he's 35-12 in the playoffs. These other guys have 1-2, 0-2, 0-1, 1-3. So I'm sorry. Great win. Like I said, great win for the Minnesota Vikings. It was a hell of a game. But you're not changing my mind because I've seen the story before on Kirk Cousins. And I told you, John, also, because let's not let your boy slide, right? Your boy Josh Allen, once again coming up short in these close games, in the biggest games too. Is he going to start having these, monikers on him of coming up short?
Well, we didn't think he was going to be able to play, and he put up 400 yards today
Yeah,
with an
but
elbow
he also
injury.
turned the ball over what 4 times?
Well, he had the fumble at the end, but I would put that more on the center for the snap, not as much on Allen.
Okay, that's fine, but
It
still,
got
it's
a little
on
bit
his.
funky in there when I was watching
Yes,
the replay. That's just my opinion.
yes, no, no, I know what you're talking about. Um, but I'm just saying though, 4 turnovers though, that's a lot of turnovers, and he played the game. So again, you've said if you're injured, I'm just going to evaluate you on what you've put out on the field, and he went on the field and he played. So I just
Mr. By the Book over here. I can't do it with you.
no, but with these guys, I'm telling you, I don't, there's something missing. Listen, I told you Patrick Mahomes is the leader in MVP category a week ago when we talked about it, and I think he's again still the leader now. Um, it's there's levels to this, and Mahomes is on another level than Josh Allen, but Tom Brady's on the highest of levels.
No, that's not quite true. So
Yes, it
there's a
is.
lot of crazy games today. Right now, Matt Ryan is playing, which is something I did not expect when Jeff Saturday is asked in his press conference, "Hey, do you have the autonomy to pick the quarterback?" And he said, "Yeah, I do. I do have the autonomy to pick the quarterback." And I said, "Oh, okay. That's just him saying the right thing." But surely enough, the Colts right now are up on the Las Vegas Raiders, the team I had winning. You've been seeing this game. Jonathan Taylor, first 100-yard rushing appearance since week one this year, also in the red zone, or in the end zone, excuse me. This Colts team is not supposed to be winning games. I felt like at this stage of the season, it was all about doing everything they could to get Bryce Young with the first overall pick. Do you have any takeaways on this game, or can we move forward?
I mean, I just like the energy, from Jeff Saturday.
It's the pure interim energy. And also, the Cowboys right now up 21-14. The Packers had the ball third quarter. They've looked much better offensively. Christian Watson got in the end zone, 58-yard score and a cool little back clip. Nice to see
Mm-hmm.
he can actually catch the football. And after that, anything else you want to touch on before we move on to the NBA?
Just, I think I'm saying this right though. Ziege, Ziege. Let's
Okay,
go in
enough.
German.
Enough of you. I can't do
Auf
this.
Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen, John. That's goodbye.
So, moving on, I actually want to touch on my Steelers real quick while we're
Yeah,
at it.
sure, yeah.
Pittsburgh today put on their best show of the season. And as a Steeler fan, I'm really concerned. They're just going to go all out to win games. They're going to finish 8 and 9, miss the playoffs, get the 16th overall pick in the draft, and miss out on an elite tackle prospect, and just cement themselves even deeper in the purgatory. Now, there were positives with the Steelers win over the Saints. Number one, Kenny Pickett made some big time plays. Number two, Najee Harris looked much better, though he did get banged up in the middle of the game. At number 3, George Pickens was being used more, getting some end arounds, some end zone looks as a rusher, a little bit more of that Chase Claypool role now that he is in Chicago. But then defensively, let me just say it one time, because last time saying it, TJ Watt is single handedly the most transformative defensive player in football. The Steelers with him have had an elite defense, and without him, in each of the last 3-4 years, in his peak, Brandon, they have had one of the worst defenses without him. And it's no surprise. He didn't get to play the full game today, but when you watch the way he can influence the entire opponent's offense, it makes life so much easier for everybody around him. It even makes guys in free agency want to go to Pittsburgh because they get the opportunity to play with one of the very best players in football, a guy that at his peak right now is, in my opinion, this is kind of generational stuff. How good he has been, the level of production last year, tying the all-time sacks record, and this year we've seen coming off of an arthroscopic knee surgery and a torn pectoral, not fully, partially. He came in and made an immediate impact, gains the quarterback all over the football field, and this Pittsburgh defense, what they do, played one of their best games of the season. So it's really time you start to give TJ Watt that damn credit as definitively a top 2 or 3 defender in football, in the same exact class as Aaron Donald.
I don't think anybody was questioning TJ Watt's greatness, but okay, John.
You're questioning the Steelers with TJ Watt, and he's the one that carries this team. He's the
I was
engine.
just
He's what
questioning.
makes it go.
Congratulations. You beat Andy Dalton and Dennis Allen. I mean, congratulations. You want a cookie or something? Move on.
You had us losing.
All right.
I'm trying to pull up
Fair
TJ's
game.
stats for
Fair
this game.
game to you. Fair game to you.
And no Minka Fitzpatrick either. He only had one quarterback hit,
All
4
right.
tackles. You could feel his impact in this return.
Fair game.
Okay,
You
so
won.
moving on to the NBA cap, Kyrie Irving was suspended last week. And in his absence, the Brooklyn Nets have went 4-1. Keep in mind, with him on the court, the Nets were not even a play-in team this year. They had the very worst defensive rating in basketball, and right now they're playing tonight against the Lakers at 9:30. They were just 2-6 to start this year, and right now Kevin Durant is putting on an absolute MVP tour. We saw this to begin last year, where of course there was no Kyrie Irving for reasons we don't have to get into. Kyrie's taken some of the steps, right, to get back onto the court. But I have to ask you, for Brooklyn, is the right move here just winning a bunch of games with KD, and then at some point in the middle of January, you just trade him right then and there when no one's expecting it, when everything's so high, you're at the high water mark, and it feels like the Nets have a chance to turn this thing around, given how well Kevin Durant's been playing. I just want to read off to you a few ridiculous stats and metrics with this team. But before I get to that, what is your opinion on that?
On which thing?
Should the Nets trade Kevin Durant and 2 months?
I mean, I don't see this team really contending. Uh, so yeah, I think Kevin Durant. It's so weird to gauge. I don't know. I hate trying to get into KD and Kyrie's mindset because it's impossible. Uh, I mean, if I was in his situation, I wouldn't want to be there. But then again, he put himself in that situation. I would have never put myself in that situation. So yeah, I don't know. All I do know is from what I've seen a little bit, the Nets seem to be playing a lot better team basketball without Kyrie Irving.
And a change of head coach.
Yeah, and that's true. And with Kyrie coming back, we all know. I mean, he's not the biggest. I wouldn't call him. He is a solo act, right? He is a solo act. Like when he's at his best, he's dancing on you and doing what Kyrie does. But I don't think this. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. There's not much to say on it because it's just been.
So we all know that. I think the Nets right now have a championship equity below 1%. because you've had so much turmoil, so much turnover, and a roster around KD that's not very good. So in the last 5 games, the Nets have the very best net rating in basketball, and they've gone from 30th in defensive rating to first in the league. You have Ben Simmons coming back, he's on a minutes restriction. Nick Claxton, Kevin Durant has always had the ability. You look at their last 5 matchups: the Clippers without Kawhi, the Knicks, the Mavericks, the Luka-led Mavericks, so it's really just Luka, the Hornets without LaMelo, and the Washington Wizards. None of those teams are very good. And so for the Nets, it's not very impressive. They're going on this big time winning streak. At the end of the day, for Brooklyn, the right move here is accepting and cutting your losses. This last week, opposed to hiring Ime Udoka, it was pretty obvious whether it was the NBA or just some Nets officials making it clear to Joe Tsai, hey, we should probably not hire Ime because Ime is not going to be the solution here. And so, is it worth taking on the baggage that comes with hiring a guy that has that much, kind of questions under whatever he was doing in Boston? And so, for this Nets team, I look at them without Kyrie and say, the right move here, once you get Kyrie back on the floor, go on a little winning streak, get the value of KD very high, and maybe if you can garner a first-round draft pick from the Lakers, LeBron was in support of Kyrie the other day on social media, you can turn this thing around by getting a ton of trade assets for KD in the middle of the season. If you send him to a team like Miami, that's going to give you everything they have, but maybe minus Tyler Hero and Bam and Jimmy, to basically get a win-win trade for both sides.
Wait, at the end, did you say LeBron to Miami
KD to Miami.
or KD to Miami?
I said LeBron is in support of Kyrie on Twitter, which
Yes.
maybe to Lakers officials would indicate we're
What
willing to
about
take in
what about
Kyrie if
KD
he's
to the
available.
Lakers?
That would never happen.
Why not?
Then
Anthony
the Lakers
Davis?
don't have the trade assets.
Anthony Davis and 2 first-round picks.
I would never do that if I'm Brooklyn. I'm looking to get younger, and I'm looking to get
He is
players who can
younger.
kind of fill out the culture. Anthony Davis is 29, but he's an appreciating asset, and that's going to lead us to a Lakers discussion in a couple of moments. But if I'm Sean Marks, I would much rather take on Duncan Robinson's salary with Victor Oladipo. Tyler Hero has a poison pill, so he can't be moved until next summer. And then maybe one or two other assets or contracts like Kyler Lowry, and then a bunch of draft picks. Opposed to the Lakers, maybe their picks in 2027, 2029 will be more valuable. But just holistically, I don't think that would be the best offer on the table. Maybe Phoenix has it.
Couldn't tell you what the best offer is because of all the everything you just said.
It's tough here
Yeah.
because the best offer would be from the Raptors or the Pelicans. That's the only way you're going to get a ton of young star talent for Kevin. But at
Yeah,
the
and
end
I
of the
don't
day,
think.
the Raptors are not going to move Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. They're
Well,
going to hold
not
those
even
assets
that.
close to the chest.
I don't think KD would want to go to Toronto. No offense to Toronto.
Doesn't matter.
And
He doesn't have a trade clause.
yeah, but he's gonna. John, we know the NBA.
He has
He
4 years left in his
and
contract. What do you mean we know the NBA? That's not how this thing
it's
works.
a
If he has
play.
a year
Yes, it
left in
is.
his
It's a player.
contract, yeah.
John, it's a player-driven league. If he doesn't want to go to Toronto, he's not going to Toronto. I can promise you that. I
This
promise
isn't
you.
like Goran Dragic last year that goes to Toronto and decides not to play. For KD, he is 34 years old, playing peak level basketball. He's going to Toronto with an elite head coach, a great organization, and a great supporting cast. That's a much better supporting cast in Toronto than in Brooklyn, and it's not even
Yeah, but he
close.
can't lead a team to win. So what the hell is the case?
What do you mean he can't lead a team to wins? He's been an MVP candidate perennially when he's
With that,
healthy, and
but no, what I mean with he was never a lead guy on a championship team.
but can
Never
he
was.
change that narrative on a team filled with versatile young wings that when KD maybe sits out, load manages, can then still have the Raptors playing competitive
Yeah, but
basketball
John, you're
and
gonna
in the
have to
playoffs
give up a lot of those players. You're gonna have to
for
give up a lot
Toronto?
of.
I think the trade will look like it really pains me to say Pascal Siakam, but he would have to be the main piece with draft compensation. And then maybe a Chris Boucher, one of those other backup wings on the bench,
Nah, you're
or
bugging out
a
of your
Precious
mind, dude.
Achua.
No, you're bugging out of your mind. They want one of those young top thoroughbred guys that they got.
Well, Fred VanVleet's not exactly a spring chicken. The spring chicken here would be Scotty Barnes, and I think for Toronto, he's not on the table for any trade. Even though
Well, then,
this year he hasn't taken the
yeah,
next step, partially due to an ankle injury from a few months ago or a few weeks
I
ago.
wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think any of those situations. I mean, obviously Pascal would have to be in the deal because of his contract is would be the one that would match up with KD's at least the best. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. And with New Orleans, it doesn't look like New Orleans is willing to quote unquote blow up that core. I think they want to play it out and see how it works. Uh, yeah, for Miami, as a Miami fan speaking, I really don't want KD coming to Miami. Just not really,
What do you mean?
Listen, I have no hate for KD, but I just would rather not have him on a franchise that I root for.
Do you want to win a championship, my friend?
Yeah,
Kevin Durant, think about this, BCAP. He wouldn't be the leader, the guy holding others accountable in Miami.
obviously he
That would
wouldn't
be
be the
Jimmy.
leader.
And he would have an awesome head coach that I think is the best in the
Yes,
NBA in Eric Spoelstra. And what do the Miami Heat need, BCAP?
the number one scorer.
They also need rebounding and some size. What does Kevin Durant bring?
Okay, yeah,
Size. So for Bam Adebayo this year, who struggled as the sole guy above 6'8" in the starting lineup, you add in a 6'11" KD who has shown the ability to defend on great teams, and all of a sudden the Miami Heat, you're gonna have to give up. It's tough. You're gonna have to keep Tyler Hero on this trade and give up all of your future draft picks. That's the only way you're gonna be able to make it work if this trade happens in the middle of this season. But that's the thing. If you still have Tyler Hero coming off the bench, you move Kyle Lowry, you have Jimmy Butler take on more of a point guard role, and Tyler Hero is going to be
there's
playing both on and off the ball. I think
no,
this offense
no,
could be elite with KD.
no. There's no way Tyler Hero is going to be able to stay on this team with us getting KD.
No, the reason why is because he has a poison pill on his
Yeah,
contract due
but
to the
then that
recent
means then
extension.
the trade is the talks are dead right in
But
the
I don't know if
beginning.
Brooklyn even be that interested in a Hero given this new contract he got worth over $120
They'd
million.
obviously want him over what Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson,
That's
and
expiring
not
salary.
very, not very good contracts though. I mean, not very good draft picks. It's not that interesting. Obviously, Tyler Hero would have to be in that. There's no way, and the obviously the trade can't happen. So we're kind of just talking in circles here because this whole. I mean, it must suck to be a basketball GM right now with how the trade market is, and it seems to be at like a stalemate right now with the big players.
And talking about teams that have very arduous tasks ahead for their general manager, BCAP, the Lakers to start this season. Oh
Palinka,
boy. I
Palinka,
told you. I told you the Lakers and the Nets were not going to be playoff teams. I still
mhm.
had them making it through the play-in tournament. To start this season, the Lakers just keep on losing. They are 2-10. 12 games in the season. The middle of November, we are well into the season, almost a month now, and they are the second worst team in the Western Conference. And keep in mind, they're already five games out, 3.5 weeks in from the eighth seed. I look at this Lakers team, and it's pretty straightforward. You overpaid massively for Anthony Davis. You then splurged all of your remaining assets on Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder. You gave up some very valuable fits next to LeBron James veterans, and with LeBron, what does he like to play with? Experienced vets. And for the Los Angeles Lakers franchise, they gutted their entire future to build around LeBron James. The quest was building a sustainable winner, and they failed mightily at that. It's not just that they failed, they have completely not surrounded him with the relevant supporting cast. They gave up all of the best fits around him in Contavious Caldwell Pope, Wesley Matthews, Mark Gasol, and Danny Green. In the process, you try to shortchange things by splurging remaining first round draft picks. And some of those draft picks became players like Isaiah Jackson and Jaden McDaniels, players taken after them, PCAP. Desmond Bain, Quentin Grimes, Ayo Dosunmu, and many other very good young players. Desmond Bain right now is an all-star. The Lakers could have had that had they have not made the Dennis Schroeder trade. And in the process, you would have kept Danny Green and had a little bit more spending, a little bit more flexibility in free agency once Danny Green's contract expired in 2021. So you look at what the Lakers have done management wise, and it just reeks of the simple fact Rob Pelinka is far and away the worst executive in sports. He has done literally nothing right. You can't point to one move and say, wow, that was really clever. That was a great use of your assets. Nothing he has done has been smart, wise, or with the thoughts of the long term plan. Because you look at the Lakers for the next decade, they have just two first round picks in 2027 and 2029. The rest of their draft picks in 2023, it's a pick swap with the New Orleans Pelicans. Completely unprotected pick swap. 2024, the Pelicans have their first round pick. But if New Orleans wants to, they can push that pick to 2025. And in the process, you have no young talent, no stars under the age of 30 or 29 years old, and worst of all, three depreciating assets in LeBron James at 37, Anthony Davis at 29, and Russell Westbrook at 33 years old. The fact of the matter is, the Lakers have to trade Anthony Davis. That's the only way they can actually prepare for the future. And I know what people are going to say, John, you can't do that to LeBron James. You just signed him to a 2-year extension this offseason, and if you trade AD, you're not going to get a better player than him. He's a top 20 guy while playing through an injury right now. And that's the point. For the Lakers to have some semblance of relevance over the next decade, you have to realize it's over with LeBron James. He's not a top 5 player. I don't think he's even going to get back to that top 10 level because when you reach this age of 37 years old, it takes so much longer to recover from injury. And we're seeing right now with LeBron, it is just November and he is missing time with his foot. He's having stomach flu and so many other issues. It takes so much longer to get back to 100%. And with Braun, it's quite clear he's nowhere near the same player he was 2.5 years ago. Even last year, when he averaged 30 points per game, it was because he was playing center offensively in the role of kind of a role man. He wasn't playing much defense, and the Lakers as a whole were losing in spite of LeBron putting up great numbers. It was kind of just him producing in a losing environment. And at this point, he can't carry teams the way he could. So for the Lakers, Anthony Davis is the only way out of this. Maybe move him to Chicago, get a couple of young assets, a couple of draft picks, and just cut your losses. LeBron may not like it, but in terms of flexibility and actually building a team with depth and a little bit, just a semblance of flexibility, that's the only way out of this drama right now.
Yeah. I just reacted like I saying ooh because I just saw Cooper Cup just got his leg kind of rolled up under him. It was looked bad. He had to be helped to the bench. That sucks. But to what you were saying, John, let me offer up a trade scenario for you that I thought about recently. Russ and AD and either both or one of the first round picks, right? For Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis.
I'm going to be honest with you, BC. If I'm going to make another deal with Washington, I want back Kyle Kuzma. Because right now, he is playing at the level of a
Yeah,
low end star, a high end starter.
yeah, but I just don't think Kuzma would be playing at this level with LeBron in LA in there because there isn't that many bright lights going on right now in Washington. But what do you think of that trade right there? That trade?
So you would have to kind of match the salary a little bit because Chris Kristaps is making a little bit less money. I think for the Lakers, it's a fine move, but that doesn't actually push you into contention because LeBron James is not playing at a great level. He's playing a very
I
good
think he
one.
can. I think he can, but you get him the help that he needs. Bradley Beal is a shot creator, and he can shoot from anywhere on the court. He could finish in the at the hole. You got Kristaps, who is a good what like this isn't a
20
good
and 8 guy that
comparison,
can protect the rim, stretches the
but
floor.
yeah, like I was gonna compare him to like a Kevin Love type, but like much bigger, and obviously he can protect the rim better. But like that, this is what I was getting at, right? Is I never liked the AD move to begin with for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, the injury concerns. I didn't believe in AD in New Orleans. He didn't really lead that team to what he should have been when he was being talked about as a top 5 player.
Well, the
Uh,
Lakers are championship heights.
no, that was LeBron. Stop it. Um,
It was 1A,
and then
1B, my man.
yeah, but LeBron won the Finals MVP. So, for me, and the fit just didn't work for me either with LeBron and AD. LeBron has always worked with what a great guard, Dwayne Wade, a la Dwayne Wade and Kyrie, and a stretch four, a la a Chris Bosh and a Kevin Love. Usually, and so that's why I say I give you Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. Not Dwayne Wade, not Kyrie, not Chris Bosh, not Kevin Love, but he's just a pretty damn good player. I mean, Bradley Beal himself, he led the league in scoring, right, a couple of years ago, or almost
I
did.
was, I'll be honest with you, I was on a crappy Wizards team. I'm gonna say this for Washington, they want to do that move because you're taking on a negative asset in Russ when Kristaps Porzingis is playing some of the best basketball of his career. And Bradley Beal, he's a really good player. Those 30-point per game seasons aren't really going to show how kind of versatile an offensive player he is. And in this stage, he can play both as an on-ball and off-ball creator at a high level. For the Lakers, though, Brad and LeBron, that duo makes you like the seventh or eighth best team in the West. And so the fact of the matter is, to make this move happen, you're going to have to give the Wizards one or two of those picks in 2027 and 2029. And
That's
if
why
you're
I
going to go
said that.
half in right now, and if you're going half in right now for a team that's not top six, you're not even going to make it out the play-in tournament, you're not picking a side. And ultimately, for the Lakers, you got to look at the best possible return for these stars and say, hey, LeBron, look, we're going to get you some young talent, a couple of nice young wings, and spread out the floor for you. We're going to put you on a minutes restriction, no more than or a game limit, like 55 games a season. And
LeBron's
we're
not going to go for any of that, though.
oh well,
LeBron's not going to go for that. Oh
that's
well.
you have to pick a side here. LeBron's not going to be here in 4 years. The Lakers are going to
Okay,
have
then
no
trade
assets if
LeBron.
they. What's up?
Then trade LeBron.
He might have to be traded, but that's kind of the rule in the NBA. You don't trade LeBron, and he doesn't have a trade clause.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you're going to try and basically blow up the team, LeBron's not here for a rebuild. It's here for a rebuild.
LeBron also helped them point in the direction of trading for Russell Westbrook. So
That's because Palinka wasn't willing to give DeMar DeRozan that extra year. So come on, if we're going to be fair, let's be fair.
ownership wasn't, to be very fair. Right.
Okay, still, that's neither here nor there. Semantics. Then you gotta, if you're gonna basically blow it up, then you gotta get LeBron's gotta go. Then he gotta get traded. AD's gotta get traded. I mean, I guess you can keep Russ because he's on an expiring contract and it doesn't really matter anyway. You're not gonna get much from him anything, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so if that's the case, then you gotta blow it up. But then again, is that what Genie Bus wants to do?
Do you think Jeannie
That's
Buss has a clear vision of what's going to work for the Lakers? She just extended the worst GM in the entire NBA on a 4-year deal.
yes, because they're friendly with each other, and
Family.
yes. Listen, she surrounds herself with a lot of knuckleheads. That's not for me to get into. Yeah, she's for me. Honestly, there's too many cooks in the too many cooks in the kitchen with
In
the
the front
Lakers. You got
office.
Palinka, you got Bust, you got no, what are those? The two knuckleheads, John. Come on,
No, not the Cupjacks. The
the
Ramesses. The
the
Rambine.
Ramesses, those freaking knuckleheads too. And then you got LeBron over here, like, yo, like I'm here too. So it's a mess over in LA.
We're going to look back in a decade, and the Lakers are going to have no clear direction because no star wants to go there. With all that out of the way, let's move on to UFC 281. We're going to talk about the Grizzlies, but I'm going to save that for our next episode.
All right, so UFC 281 coming to you from the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. It was a great night of fights. Atmosphere was incredible. New York City's always bringing it. I'll start off from the bottom and go to the top. Obviously, my parlay didn't hit. It was a rough night for your boy Brandon. Starting off with my girl Molly McCann. She was going up against a very good grappler. She dared to be great there. She knew the risk she was taking. She got caught up with it. She got crucifixed pretty easily. And then it was kind of, sooner rather than later, the finish was going to come. And she finally got the Kimura and she had to tap. Still huge Molly fan, but, it just sucks to see that happen. Dominic Reyes coming back after a year plus absence. He was riding a 3-fight losing streak. The first one being against John Jones for the UFC light heavyweight championship, which he lost. Then against Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight championship again, where he got knocked out, and then against Yuri Prochazka, where Yuri KO'd him with one of the most vicious spinning elbows to the face I've ever seen in my life. He got slept. Didn't look good. Span just kind of really went at him and didn't really respect Dom's power. This is bad. It's 3 straight KO losses for Dominic Reyes. It looks like he's kind of going towards a decline here. But then we get to the main card, the pay-per-view, kicking off with Dan the Hangman Hooker. He put on a great performance. It was phenomenal. He showed phenomenal high fight IQ, being able to stuff takedowns, getting his leg out of positions that were harmful and dangerous to him. Palesi's just chased the takedown the entire fight. He was committed. The crowd was giving it to him. There was towards the end there was a chant of "You are a P word" by the New York City crowd. But Dan Hooker was able to get the finish later in the fight with his teep kicks to the body, and Palesi just did not have any more gas to go, so the ref just stopped it. Great performance. I would love to see Dan Hooker. He said after the fight in the post-fight interview to Joe Rogan that he wants to be on the Perth card in Australia in February, UFC 284. And one fight that I would love to see is him versus Rafael Fiziev, another top 6 or 7 lightweight in the world. Be a great stand-up fight. Hopefully that can get booked. Next up it was a sad moment. It sucks to see your legends go out like this, but as they say, real life is not a movie. It's not Hollywood. And more often than not, your legends and people that are Hall of Famers don't get to go out on top. Frankie Edgar got KO'd by a big knee, basically flatlined him instantly. But the crowd still showed their appreciation. I just want to say, phenomenal career for Frankie Edgar. Legend, future Hall of Famer, former champion. And I just want to say thank you, Frankie Edgar. The answer. Next up was insane. Oh, what a first round. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Michael Chandler. This fight did not disappoint. This was worth the price of admission. Oh my God. They went at it from Jump Street, basically. Chandler was swinging big looping shots. In the second round, he was able to get the takedown, secure it, basically hold down Poirier for the entire round. There was a little controversy there with a little fish hook action. Poirier was complaining to the ref and a couple shots to the back of the head. But listen, at the end of the day, Dustin Poirier showed that he was the better fighter than Michael Chandler. He had the better gas tank. And he was able to. I mean, Chandler's a freak of nature. The man is insanely strong. He was dead tired going into that third round, and he was still able to power Dustin Poirier up over his shoulders and slam him to the ground. And on his way to trying to get Poirier's back, he lost position. Poirier was able to get his back, and for the first time in Michael Chandler's career, he was submitted. Never been submitted before in his entire career. I did not see that coming. That was an outcome that I would never have guessed before the fight. I don't know where Mike goes from here. I know he had big aspirations. He wanted to be a champion. He wanted to be the UFC champion next year, middle of 2023. I believe he's 2-4, 2-5 in his UFC career so far, but the record doesn't speak for itself. I mean, he has made himself a superstar name in the UFC coming over from Bellator. He's put on phenomenal fights. All his fights are rewatchable as hell because they're just lightning. So hats off to Michael Chandler. He really showed up. And hats off to Dustin Poirier. I don't know what's next for Dustin Poirier. There's not much out there for him. He's had two cracks at the World Championship. Both time he lost to Habib, and the other one to Oliveira. Islam's defending his title. That fight was announced against Alexander Volkanovski in Perth. I can't wait for that fight. That's a tough fight for Volk. I don't know what's next for Poirier. Maybe a move up to 170 against a former teammate of his in Colby Chaos Covington. We'll see. Next up was the co-main event, the strawweight championship. Weili Zhang versus Carla Esparza, and it was a mismatch basically. I mean, Weili showed that she has improved mightily in her wrestling and grappling. She came in as really a pure striker, using her power and strength to intimidate and really overpower her opponents. This one, her wrestling improved a lot. She was able to stuff a couple takedowns. She was able to get up, and her grappling, I didn't see that coming. I mean, the grappling was kind of out of nowhere with me. I didn't know that her grappling was going to become this much better than what it was before. She was able to get the submission on Carla Esparza. We're moving on to, no offense to Carla, but it's just she's not a very exciting fighter, and that's just the style of fight she fights in, and that's fine. But for my money, it's not something that I really want to see that much. Is somebody just laying on top of each other. I'd rather, if you're gonna wrestle, I'm not opposed to wrestling, but if you're going to wrestle, I like to see chasing the finish, good transitions, all that good stuff. But Whaley's got the championship now. She's going to be a problem. That striking, wrestling, grappling, and pure strength. You got something you want to say, John? About
She's a beast.
yeah,
Watching that fight, that was the one fight where I caught full on this into myself. I guess she was by far the heavy front runner, but it
oh yeah,
wasn't even close. Like an
and she
utter
was the
domination.
challenger, and she was the
I think it was
challenger.
also a poor mismatch too for Esparza, or poor
Well,
matchup. Excuse me.
see a little bit, but Rose was able to take advantage of Whaley in their second fight with the wrestling late in the rounds. And that's what Carla probably thought that she was going to be able to do, is that she'd be able to take advantage of that. Whaley's been working with Henry Cejudo, former two weight champion in the UFC, former gold medalist in the Olympics for wrestling. She's improved her wrestling and grappling, and with that pure strength, and now you've got your technique getting better. It's going to be a problem to deal with. I guess we're going to be moving on to Rose and Whaley 3. Whaley's lost both fights to Rose. But I guess that's what we're moving on to next. And then we got the main event. For me, it was a little heartbreaking. I'm an Izzy fan. I like Izzy. I had Izzy up 3-1 going in that fifth round. I had him up. I had him winning. I forget which rounds it was. Surprising to me that he did go for the takedowns a couple of different times, and he was able to get a takedown and sustain and control for the whole round. And he really won that round off of basically just controlling. But really, the fifth round is really what everybody probably wants to talk about. When it happened, I thought it was a bad stoppage. I thought it was an early stoppage. My brother was watching it with me. He instantly said no, it was a good stoppage, that he was going to get put out. And listen, I'm not here to argue if he was going to get put out, if he wasn't. For my money, for what I believe is, you got to let the champion go down on his shield. And I know people say, yeah, but there shouldn't be different rule sets for, a prelim fight and a championship main event fight. There aren't different rules, but it's a different type of, I don't even know how to put it, but you got to realize the moment that you're in. Izzy's been a champion for 2.5 years plus. He's defended his title over. He's lapped the division twice. He's up 3-1. You got to let him go on his shield. For what I was seeing, my eyes, Izzy was still moving his head towards the end. He was moving his head. I thought he was, quote unquote, defending himself intelligently. From what I saw, my vantage point, what I saw, I thought he was still defending himself intelligently. Could he have gotten caught? Yes. But that's like in any fight. Could they get caught? Yes, they could get caught. You let him play it out. And who knows? Maybe he gets knocked out. Maybe he's able to get the takedown. One thing that was blowing my mind was Izzy in the final moments. I hated that he kept trying to still grab for the clinch. I was like, Izzy, shoot for the takedown or something. Like, just got to get out of there. Don't go like this. And just because now you're keeping yourself complete. And I know his head is probably getting knocked up and he's not thinking straight, but ah, it just sucked for me. Um, yeah. Congrats to Alex. Uh, the wrestling that we saw in the main event was not very high level wrestling. If anybody was wondering, it was pretty I won't be that elementary, if I should say. I guess we're moving on to the quote unquote rematch, or if you want to include the kickboxing matches, the quadrilogy, which I just learned is apparently what the fourth thing is. I didn't know that before. Um, Izzy called for it after the fight. He said, "I'm down to do the fourth fight because I dare to be great." And you got to respect that by Izzy. He dares to be great. He's not going to back down. One thing I did pick up on in the last three fights, John. I don't know if you're able to catch all three of them, but Dustin Poirier looked significantly bigger than Michael Chandler. Wei Lee looked significantly bigger than Carla Esparza, and Pereira looked significantly bigger than Izzy. There was a big disparage of size going there. They all obviously weighed the same going into the fight, but you looked different. Like Alex looked like a freaking light heavyweight going in there, and Izzy looked like a middleweight. It was insane just to see them standing next to each other, and they're both 6'4", which that makes no sense to me because Alex looked like he had 2 or 3 inches on top of Izzy. Uh, yeah, we're on to the fourth fight. I hope Izzy can get his title back because I'm going to say this right now. 90% of the top 10 middleweights are beating Pereira easily because he's got absolutely no wrestling and grappling. None whatsoever. So, I mean, Marvin Vettori eats him. Cannonier eats him. Brunson can beat him. Whitaker will whoop his ass. Hopefully, Izzy can get his title back. But great night of fights all in all for UFC 281. Loving the energy from the crowd. Next week's fight is not that good of a fight card, but we're splurging on these main events and we get a little treat every month from the UFC. So I love it so much.
Yes, indeed. I wish I could have caught the entire thing. I was watching basketball. I got to find the right schedule to balance watching the two. Now, there was one thing that I knew I was forgetting to mention before, and it was the New York Football Giants B cap. I had them winning 5 games coming to this year. I think you had them around the same exact mark. They beat the Texans today 24-16 at home, moving to 7-2 on the season. The Philadelphia Eagles, meanwhile, are still to be beaten. The Dallas Cowboys right now are up against the Green Bay Packers. They too, after just getting Dak Prescott back, are 6-2. When you look at this division, I just want to revisit the take once again. The NFC East is the NFC East is the NFC least. I think there's a legitimate chance the Eagles go 17-0 this year, and the New York Giants are the 5th seed in the playoffs with 12 wins when you look at each of their 2 schedules end the season. So I'm going to list off to you real quick the Eagles' remaining opponents. We're going to go through all of it, and then we're going to come down to whether or not they can actually pull off what is kind of impossible. We haven't seen this be done in over an entire decade. You right? So next week, the Eagles, coming off their bye week, or excuse me, the Eagles not. They're playing tomorrow against the Commanders. This game was such a snooze fest. I forgot they were playing this week. Tomorrow night at home versus the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, they'll win that game.
I would agree with you. The following week, they have Indianapolis on the road at 1 o'clock.
Oh, you just mentioned Indianapolis. Jeff Saturday got his first win in the NFL, 25-20 against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're riding high. Listen, it's in Indianapolis. This team is playing with energy and passion. Jonathan Taylor's healthy. Michael Pittman's there. Matt Ryan's healthy. I've always said this is a team that you don't really want to face because they play a style of football that is not, you know, something you want to go up against, which is run the football and play defense. It could win. I would have to think about it more going into the week. If I'm not mistaken, Shaq Leonard is out for the season or on IR. Uh, so yeah, that one's it's Indianapolis has a shot of winning that game, I should say.
Shaq Leonard is on IR, but it's not certain if he's going to miss the rest of the season with
Mhm.
a neck injury. So that stuff, like last year with Chris Carson, it was so serious that he had to retire. But the next game after the Colts and the Washington Commanders is the Green Bay Packers at home.
I think they can beat Green Bay, but I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay pulls that game out.
So if I were to hold your head to the fire, you think they split between the Colts and the Packers? They don't win both of those two games.
If I'm not mistaken, they play the Cowboys right after the Packers.
They play the Titans, then the Giants, then the Bears, and then the Cowboys in week 16.
Oh wow, that really that late? I thought it was much sooner than that.
Christmas Eve.
Ooh, um, yeah, I think they would yeah, they're gonna win one and lose the other one. Green Bay or Indianapolis.
I think they win both of those two games. The next game would
Yeah,
be at home versus Tennessee on December 4th, 1 o'clock.
I think they would be favored to win that game. I would favor them to win.
Next game, the Giants on the road, December 11th at 1 o'clock.
I would favor them to win that game.
By favor, that's the team you're picking.
Yes,
The next game after be on the road in Chicago, December 18th at 1.
I would favor the Philadelphia Eagles to win that game.
And then this feels like the game that could decide the NFC East.
Mhm.
December 24th, Christmas Eve, Cowboys hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you have winning that game?
Jerry World, the
If
Dallas
Odell's
Cow.
back by then,
If
it
who's
seems like
back?
Odell.
Oh, if Odell's back. No, I said in Jerry's World. That's what it's called. The stadium is Jerry's World.
I'm not acknowledging that.
Well, listen, don't
But
be
if Odell
disrespectful.
does sign there in the next week,
Mhm.
he'll probably be ready to go by then.
Oh no, I saw a report that Odell is going to be signing in late November. Um, but to answer your question, I have the Dallas Cowboys winning and beating the Philadelphia Eagles that week.
I think the Cowboys are taking that game.
Mhm.
Then they're going back home to Philadelphia for New Year's Day against the Saints.
I'll take the Saints down.
And the last game of the season, which is kind of their annual matchup, the Giants versus the Eagles at home.
They're going to win that game. Yeah. When I looked at their schedule a couple weeks ago, I had them losing 2 to 3 games around that margin. So I think tough games um off the bat are Indianapolis, Green Bay, one of the two. They're gonna. I think there's a chance they split with the Giants. I do, and they're gonna lose the Cowboys game. Those are the
I
four
think
games that I think are gonna be like their toughest games.
I think the toughest of all the Eagles' upcoming games is the Tennessee Titans. They stop the run with two of the best D tackles in the league, and beyond that, have Derek freaking Henry. With Ryan Tannehill and Treylon Burks coming back into the lineup, that Tennessee team is one of the most underrated because when you overlook them, they're just going to do what they always do. They know what their identity is, they win close games, and they keep games close. So they have a formula that clearly works. I think that's the one game the Eagles are losing for the rest of the season to go along with the Cowboys' loss. Those two, only ones I have. So I had them finishing 15-2, which is literally 5 more wins than I predicted. I was
So you
super high on
think
the
that
Eagles
they're
going
gonna
into this year.
sweep the Giants? You don't think they split with the Giants?
I do think they beat the Giants both times. And the
Mhm.
Giants making the playoffs around 10-7, 11-6 maybe. We'll see how they can fare against the Commanders, excuse me, and the Cowboys.
It'll be interesting to see how the standings play out with the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Can the Cowboys steal the division.
It could happen, but it ultimately
Mhm.
rides on Christmas Eve. With
Yep.
all of that out of the way, is there anything else you'd like to add or touch up on before we wrap this thing up into a tie and move on to Tuesday night, ideally, when we're all three of us together?
Thomas, Edward, Patrick, Brady Jr. Still my pick for Super Bowl champions this year. Ziege.
Thank you so much for watching and staying to the very end of episode number 49. I'm John Tortorelli, and this was Brennan Capizzello. And as always, till next time.
Stay classy.